Guys, another CEO slash founder wisdom pod with Michael Whitehouse. He's an award-winning speaker, that is, the virtual guy, virtual event guy. So I messed up twice, but yeah, that's pretty much Michael right there. Michael, can you do a better job than myself at introducing yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Charles. Thanks for having me on. I'm Michael Whitehouse. I'm the fun virtual event guy. I'm also known to many as the guy who knows a guy, because I bring people together. And one of the main ways I bring people together is through fun, interactive virtual events. Behind me, it says fun virtual events that don't suck, because I started going to virtual events in 2020 and discovered most of them weren't even events. They were just kind of some videos and people to watch. And I said, I want better events. I'm going to make them myself. And I did, and I do, and now they're awesome.
I never attended any virtual events. Is it like trying to reproduce the physical networking event? Because I've done webinars, and that was like me speaking to folks, teaching them something. What are virtual events exactly?
So a virtual event is trying to replicate the benefits of a live event. You can't replicate a live event online. It's a different space, a different environment. So one of the things when doing it online is you have to reproduce everything. When you put on a talk or a class in person or a multi-speaker event, people will network on their own. You can't stop them. They're going to talk in the hallway. They're going to talk in between speakers. They're going to talk during breaks. And so connections will happen. So you could have an event with remarkably mediocre speakers and low production value and still have people walk out and say, that was a pretty good event because I met Bob and I met Susie and I met Jane. On a virtual event, they have exactly what you create for them. And so a lot of virtual event organizers didn't bother to create the thing that creates the real value, which is the human connection. Now, if you're doing a webinar, you're delivering a piece of content. You're delivering knowledge, information, solutions. That's what they came for. And if they get that, then they will say that was satisfactory use of my time. But if you do something like a summit or a conference, something like that, people are not going just for the speakers. They want the connection. And just in terms of epistemology, people can't learn if they can't engage. So you can't just put up a series of speakers. Humans don't download. You can't just have a bunch of content and pour it into their brains and expect them to retain anything, get anything out of it. You need to be able to talk to people. You need to be able to evaluate out loud and get feedback from other people and all these different human things that you need to do. So if your event is a bunch of speakers just talking at the audience, that's where Zoom fatigue comes from. That's why people say, I can't be on Zoom for more than 2 hours. My events are 6 hours long. Most people stay for the entire event, and many people at the end say, I don't know, I physically could sit on an event for 6 hours, and I could do another 2.
How do you do that? Like, I mean, me, I get easily distracted or bored, and I think that's mostly a good thing. I really love focusing my time on the best ROI. It's like, I mean, it's a bit more interactive than an audiobook, I would guess, and a podcast. Maybe I can even go for a run at the same time or something. The optimizer in me is saying, but how do you keep someone in an interactive mode for that long? Seems pretty impossible in my mind.
But you make them interact. So people interact for hours on end. They can't listen for hours on end. As you said, you want to listen to a podcast, audiobook, you go for a run. You're going to do something else at the same time. So a good event organizer makes sure that enough of their bandwidth is filled that they don't need to do something else to fill the rest of their attention. This is the mistake that event organizers make, and I think especially neurotypical event organizers. If we don't give you anything else, you'll pay full attention to what we put in front of you. No, I've got a phone. I've got a second monitor on a computer. I can shrink down my Zoom window and use the other half of my first monitor. I can do all kinds of other things if you don't hold my attention. So the format we use is the 15-15 format. So the speakers speak 15 minutes, and while they're speaking, it's like any other event. But in between that is 15 minutes of interactive time. We do breakout sessions. We do Q&A. We do hot seats. We do things that get people involved in the event. So that if you're out on a run, you can be out on a run and, you can put Zoom on your phone, wear headphones and listen in. Totally fine. You'll miss half the event because you won't get to be in the breakouts. You won't get to get in the hot seat and get the coaching from all the speakers. You won't get to ask questions in the Q&A. You'll just be consuming the content passively, which given that the failure mode of our events is basically everyone else's events, I'm pretty happy with that. But so if you just choose not to engage, just passively listen, you'll get what you get from any other event. But if you engage, then you're going to get the connections. You're going to meet people. You're going to get the networking. You're going to get your questions answered. That's the thing. People go to an event hoping that one of the speakers happens to trip over the topic that will change your life and your business. And you kind of hope they wander onto it. Well, what if instead of hoping, you could raise your hand, take the spotlight, get in the hot seat and say, here's the problem I have. How do I fix it? And have 3, 4, 5 experts who are our speakers say, well, Charles, let me ask a couple questions and then let me give you some advice and some resources. That'd be a pretty awesome event, wouldn't it? And we do that every one of our events. So because it's interactive, it's not simply out of sit and listen to a bunch of people talk to you or talk at you. It's about actually being there and getting that value directly.
Interesting. The breakout rooms caught my attention. How do you do that? And yeah, it's like networking. I want to do that in my masterminds, like typically it's 4 members in one room. So it's very interactive. It's very personal, very private. But I'd also like them to have breakouts, not only between them 4, but between the whole mastermind members, which are like, let's say 100. So how do you do breakout rooms efficiently? Is there some structured required, and what software do you use for it?
Yeah, so I use this very advanced video conferencing software that, I don't know if you've heard of it, it's called Zoom. And it's getting a lot of traction lately. So I use Zoom because everyone knows how to use it. It's not browser-based, which creates browser-based has a number of vulnerabilities. Not like security vulnerabilities, but like challenges that Zoom being its own client doesn't have. And it's common and it's proven. So I use Zoom. I set up breakout rooms. Now, one of the additional challenges I have in my events, because these are summits, some people are going out for a jog. Some people are there while they're at work or while they're taking care of the kids or whatever else. They can't give their full attention. And I'd rather have people come and give their partial attention than no attention at all. So people meet us, we meet them where they are. But one of the challenges is send people to breakout rooms. Some people are fully engaged, ready to network, and others aren't. But I just use probability to manage that. So I set up the rooms to be 5 or 6 people. That usually puts an average of 3 in a room. Some will have 2, some will have 6, but an average of 3 active people. I instruct them. I say, if someone's camera's off, pretend they're not there. Don't sit there and waste time being like, Bob, are you here? Bob, are you? Now, forget that. If their camera's off, they're not there. Forget about them. Maybe they're lurking. Maybe they're not. Have your conversation. And often I do very short breakouts because the primary purpose of the breakout is to re-engage the audience. The secondary purpose is networking and conversation, but the primary purpose is neurological. It's to get people woken back up, get them into the show, get the mics on, cameras on, talking to someone, asking that questions on their mind. And then when they come back, I've got music playing. There's some energy. I'm dancing. I don't do the like, all right, everyone dance break, everyone stand up, because some people aren't comfortable with that. So I don't want to create something where people are forced to say no to me, but I'm dancing. You can join me if you want. It's up to you. But in the breakout room, what I will do is I actually teach a particular style of introduction that I learned from Mitch Russo, actually on one of my own events. And it's a simple 2-line introduction. It's, how, what I do is. So, how, problem, what I do is, the way you solve the problem. And so I teach them that format at every event. And so, for example, for me as the virtual event guy, it's, how most events are dull and boring and hard to sit through and pay attention to. What I do is run fun, engaging events that people love to be at for the whole time. So that's, that was what, 6-7 seconds. So I teach people to do that. I send them the breakout rooms. I say, do your 6-figure intro, and then whatever comes up, comes up. Because as long as everyone's had a chance to introduce themselves, then the conversation flows freely. It's 3 minutes long. It's not going to go that bad. And it's long enough to say, oh, you're kind of interesting. Let's set up a follow-up call. Let's, could I get your LinkedIn? Could I get whatever? So it's very simple. I'm not trying to make magic happen in the breakout room. All that has to happen in the breakout room is people have to re-engage and get to know someone well enough to know if they'd like to invest more time with them. And any more time with that is really wasted. Like there's not necessarily a reason to a longer break. Now, sometimes I'll do a longer breakout room just because we're, a little bit later. People are getting to know each other. They want to stand in the hall and talk to people. Sometimes I'll do a self-directed breakout room because Zoom can do that now. You can let people opt into whatever room they want. I kind of play it like an improv DJ. So I read the room. I say, what's the energy here? How active are the audience? How many speakers do we have present? And based on that, I'll spin the next tune. So maybe we'll do a hot seat. Maybe we'll do a breakout. Maybe we'll do a short breakout. Maybe we'll do a long breakout. Maybe we'll do a short breakout, music, and then another short breakout, and then more music. It all depends on what we need at that moment to keep it going. And also, if it's an event that a client hired me for, what their goals are. So I will optimize the interactive portion to maximize the goals, maximize achieving the goals that the client came in with.
Love it. How much inspiration do you take from physical events like Tony Robbins, and are there other virtual events that you really enjoy going to and you're constantly taking notes and adding these features to yours?
I've never been to a Tony Robbins event, so I don't know how those actually operate. I do use Tony Robbins as an example when I explain the importance of having an MC, that Tony Robbins doesn't tell you where the bathroom is. So when people ask, well, why would I want an MC other than myself at my own event? And I say, because Tony Robbins doesn't tell you where the bathroom is. When you come into a Tony Robbins event, he's not the first person on stage. Someone else is the first person on stage, and they're saying, thanks for coming. Make sure to check the thing and fill out the thing, and the coffee's in the back and the bathroom's over here. And, now that you know all the stuff you need to know and all that's clear, now let's bring out the big guy. So people want to run their own events. That's cool, but it doesn't give as much authority as if you have if you have your own MC who's dealing with all that Zoom stuff. Nothing, it does not instill confidence to see you struggling setting up breakout rooms, or like, oh yeah, let's see, how do we do the screen share there? But it looks a lot better when, say, one of your speakers having trouble sharing their screen, and you can say, hey, Michael, could you help them? Because, I don't deal with screen share technology issues. I'm the guru at this event. Michael, he's the help. Let's bring him in to do it. So I'm happy to be the help. But I've seen a few events. Steve Erickson, who owns Event Raptor, his event was one of the ones that inspired me because it showed me what a summit could be. The summits I'd seen before that were mostly talking heads, blah, 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 and no engagement. And then I spoke on his stage and I said, this feels like actually being on a stage, because the chat was going constantly. People were engaging. They were talking to each other. They were joking around. They're asking questions. And I'm like, I feel the vibe in this room. So that was an example. Imana Guy runs an event called Collaborate, which is not a summit. It's a 3-day conference enrollment event. Enrollment event is what is for his purpose. He'd like to have people enroll. For the audience, it is a 3-day teaching and networking event where you learn about joint ventures and get to meet joint venture partners. And so he runs a great event, which is highly interactive. He does breakouts periodically, which again serves that same purpose, gets people re-engaged, because you can't sit and listen to someone talking to you for 8 hours on Zoom. You get bored, you get distracted, the kid's distracted, the dog needs to get fed, whatever, and your mind wanders. So you've got to get people back into it, doing something. Penelope Jane Smith also runs a great event. She does something called Financial Freedom 101. And it's a 3-day weekend all about investing and financial mindset and whatnot, which for a lot of people like, oh my God, 3 days on Zoom listening to stuff about finance. But the way she brings the energy and does different activities, and she'll bring in guests who will do different interactive things, whether it's a meditation or a stretch, or we'll play a game together, or breakouts, or all kinds of different things to keep people engaged. So I do see a few, but unfortunately there's not a lot for me to emulate, because most of them suck. Most of the events out there are just really awful, and they're built to do what they're built to do. So a lot of these pre-recorded summits, they are built to build email lists, and as events, they're awful. As an exchange of, here is valuable content and knowledge in exchange for your email address, they're a perfectly fair exchange, and they provide value. And you give me your email address, I give you 30 speakers, of which you're going to watch 7, and all of them offer free gifts, of which you're going to take 4, and those are the ones you want, and all you gave me was your contact information or maybe a few bucks, and everybody wins, right? But everybody wins at a very low level. It was a low cost, a low value. You're better off than you already came in, but you didn't go to an event. It was a recording. It was a library. You got access to a library. So there's, unfortunately, not a lot of events out there that are highly interactive, partly because you got to choose what you optimize for. So if you're optimizing for opt-ins, for getting emails on a list, for making sales, that is not always concurrent with optimizing for community experience. There was one event I went to a few years ago. There's an amazing networking event, and it had a range of people from raw newbies to 7-figure business owners, all networking together. I made amazing connections there. The problem was it was an enrollment event, and it was one of the pushiest, most manipulative enrollment events that I was ever part of. So it was wonderful through the networking, and then it was this heavy, uncomfortable, awkward 3-hour pitch period. And it just created so much tension and anxiety. And I'm sure it made sales, because the strategy is you create emotional discomfort, psychological discomfort. And the way out is you hand over the money. And once you've handed over the money, you can stop worrying about it.
You feel you were one of the only feeling that way? Because sometimes I'm a bit skeptical myself. I feel that way, but others around me do not feel that way.
Most people feel that way and don't realize it. Most people are not introspective enough to realize they feel that way. So what they think they're feeling is excited. I don't know if you've ever seen Simon Sinek talk about excitement versus fear, how they're basically the same thing. And so you can redirect your fear into excitement. Well, they redirect your fear into excitement. So you think you're excited. That's why your heart beats up. That's why you're nervous. That's why you're anxious, because you're excited about this and worried you might not be able to get it. But what you realize, if you learn how sales works and you learn what the process is and you see enough of these things, is you're not excited, you're anxious. You're fearful. You have doubts. And they'll tell you, and the most manipulative salespeople will tell you, no, your doubts are in yourself, but don't worry, we'll take care of you and we'll make sure you're taken care of, by which we mean we'll make sure we get your money. But they will transfer your natural doubts. You don't know where to put them. So they'll say, oh, no, that's just doubts that's your own limited beliefs. That's your own limited thinking. You trust us. You don't trust yourself. But don't worry. You can trust us to help you trust yourself, because we are the experts. And we've done this many, many times before.
Yeah, I feel that's how I was taught sales and marketing. And that was like 7 years ago. So I did not literally follow letter by letter of that philosophy, but I followed at least 60 to 70% of it. And it's only nowadays, I don't know, maybe it's AI that got me realizing that in an AGI world, there would be almost no sales and it would just be pure product. But I'm realizing that this philosophy right there is not scalable.
Yep. Yeah, the problem is it feels like it is, because you dump enough money into it, you can drive traffic, and you can always there's always another sucker you can send a Facebook ad to, unfortunately. So that's the unfortunate thing, is you just just drive more Facebook ads, because the world's big. The world's too big for people to really talk to each other. Because I know some bad actors out there. It's actually, I'm actually creating something called the Good Guys list. At guywhoknowsaguy.com/good guys, should be up probably by the time people are watching this. I'm making a list of the people who I trust not to do this manipulative stuff, because as a friend of mine says, it's like the Wild West. Guy rides into town, shoots someone, rides off. Who was that masked stranger? You see an ad on Facebook, you go to their webinar, you get all pumped up, you think it's amazing, you buy it, it turns out to be crap, you can't get your money back. Who is the guy? Where is he located? What country is he in? I don't know. His company closed down last week. PayPal can't get the money back. So there's all these shady actors out there. But once you get into a community, and that's one of the great things about virtual events that create networking, is you can start asking around. If no one's heard of them, you don't work with them. You only work with people who are recommended by someone. You only work with people who are recommended off someone else's list. So, and some people are more committed to referring value than others. But if I refer someone through my email list and you buy from them and you've got a problem, I'm going to step in. If you tell me, hey, I hired so-and-so, he said he'd do XYZ, he's not doing XYZ, I'm calling him up and I'm like, hey, what's going on? Charles says this is happening and he's not satisfied. How are you going to make this right? And they better make it right, because I take protecting my community very seriously. If I promote someone and they don't make it right, I have no problem sending an email out to my entire audience saying, I promoted this person. It was a mistake. One of our community members got a bad treatment and this is their story. I do not recommend this person anymore. I've never had to do it because I promote good people. But if it ever happened, I am willing to do it, because it is much more important to me that my community trusts me and that I'm providing them value than that I get some commission from someone. I can get commission from anyone. Everyone offers commission. So I'm only going to take commission from the right people.
Right. And I guess if they do not collaborate, then lawyers can be involved, because, yeah, they could also potentially sue you back if you said things to your mailing list and claim XYZ, So as a last layer, have some lawyers in there.
Yep.
The second point is, accountability. One of my favorite mechanism is financial accountability. It's tough sometimes to decide if it's your course that actually sucks or if it's the person buying it. First is, like, if I'm making a course out there, so let's say that I'm straightforward. I would mention, like, hey, if you buy my course, I don't give any refunds, like, period. And give me your money. That's going to serve as accountability. It's not outrageous price, and your chances of winning are probably 1 out of 10. And if you make it, you can make it very big with what I will teach you. How do I make sure that my alumni is successful? And how do I make sure that I have the control to help them reach their intended goals? Because people struggle with accountability. People struggle with a lot of mental models that I have and that I take for granted they don't have. So how can I maximize their odds of success with my course?
Well, and from my perspective, I'm more focused on, are you legitimately doing your best as a coach? So I saw one coach who kicked someone out of his course because she criticized the way he coached, and thus she was not a right fit client. Kicked her out and didn't give her money back. Like, that is beyond the pale. It's one thing, someone gets in your course delivers what was promised. You promised 6-week course. They went through a 6-week course. They didn't learn from it. They tried to implement it. It didn't really work, but it was delivered in good faith. It's just the process didn't work for them for whatever reason. That's a different thing. That's not that you're cheating someone. Now, if they join your 6-week course and pay $5,000 and they get like a 3-page PDF every week and that's the course, that's not what they expected. But if you say it's a 6-week course, you're there for an hour, you're teaching them some things, you got a curriculum, you know what you're talking about, and it just doesn't happen to work out for them for whatever reason, okay, that happens. That's the risk you take course, but you expect to at least have the course delivered. You expect to not be kicked out of it. You expect that it delivers all these parts. You expect that the coach is trying to deliver you value. And giving you access to the resources and letting you continue to have access to the resource and all those things. So that's what's really important. Now, obviously, I want to promote people who do get results and who are well recommended. That's who I aggressively promote. But I'll promote someone who's ethical, but I don't know the results they give, because that comes down to, I'm going to send you to their webinar. You're going to make your own decision. I know that if you give them money, they're going to give you what was promised, in that if they promise a 4-week course, it's a 4-week course. It's up to, you're going to evaluate in the webinar how much if they seem to know what they're talking about, if they're aligned to you, if you're going to do the work and all that. There's a certain point where we are working with adults. But you need to be at least able to trust the words that come out of their mouth to know that it's true.
Right.
So that's the most important thing. Is that is that trustworthiness. And yeah, it comes back to why I run events the way I do, because the best way to learn if someone is legit is to talk to them.
Yeah.
And talk to other people about them. So as you're in community with them and in break, because some of these people, you could have the biggest scumbag in the world on a summit stage, but if there's no engagement, someone else at the event can be like, wow, this guy's a scumbag, but they have no way to tell you that. If I happen to get someone on my stage who some people know some things about them, that's going to come out, first off, is going to come to me as I promote it, and they're going to be like, oh, you got that guy on your stage? Michael, do you know about this guy? That's how I find things out. And if I don't know, and if it's not brought to my attention, an attendee, the attendees are going to be there in breakouts and whatnot, communicating with each other. Now, I've only had, out of hundreds of people on my stage, I've had one who I would never have back because I later discovered that he was not up to our ethical standards, which I think is pretty good out of like 150 speakers.
Pretty good, yeah. Do you think you can change these people or give them another shot if they've shown you the proof that they are now better human beings?
If they were to reach out to me and say, I am now a better human being, I know what I did wrong.
Here's the proof. Yeah.
Yep. No, just reaching out to me, because everyone on my bad guys list doesn't acknowledge they've done anything wrong.
Bad guys list. That's funny. In my case, I have so pure course. And I'm relaunching these things. I've had various with time. Most of what I do is DFY, but yeah, I have the do it yourself. I have the done with you, and I have the done for you. And each stage has they maximize the chances of success, right? But I think what you would recommend is also done with you, because just the class itself is not probably enough to make them successful. Me, what I would do, and I'm relaunching these things. Yeah, I would go like full honesty. I would write I would try to write the exact KPIs that I hope them to achieve if they follow my class. And I would follow up with each of the students and get the success rate. And even if it's 10% that reach the goals, I would have the 10% to make myself accountable, to make the class better. And if I see that the class, I'm smart, I've checked the competition so forth. If I see that the course itself is not enough to make them, to make 50% of them successful, then I think I'd offer only done with you, with coaching, right? But even with coaching, sometimes can be quite hard, because coaching is rocket science, like have a human change. I've been doing it for the past 7 years, and I still cannot say that I'm a great coach. But interesting convo nonetheless. I know you need to run. Where can people find out more about you, Mike?
So you can learn more about my events and how to apply and register as an attendee at summits.fun. And you can find about me and my networking capacity, as well as the good guys list, at guywhoknowsaguy.com.
Nice.